Hi, everybody. This is Anna from Mary Mac Bakehouse. This week's episode, we are reposting one of our favorite episodes from 2019, Falagones with Rachel and Portia. This is a great recipe to try for Easter if you've never made it before, or if it's a family favorite, we have some interesting history you might not know about Falagones. Either way, we hope you enjoy it. We also have an interesting upcoming event at the end of April. On April 23rd, Yajagoff and the Mall at Robinson are teaming up to have a strawberry jello pretzel salad crawl through the mall from 11:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. for National Picnic Day. Mary Mac Bakehouse is going to bring our strawberry pretzel jello cookies there, and each team is teaming up with a nonprofit. So if we win $500, we'll go to the Parkinson's Foundation of Western Pennsylvania. Again, that's April 23rd at the Mall at Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania from 11:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. Stop by and try our cookies.
Hello and welcome to In the Kitchen with Mary Mac. Today we have a very special episode, Falagones. We hope to preserve some valuable Italian food history and holiday tradition with this recording. We have a few special people we'd like to thank. First, we'd like to thank our good friend Frank Murgia for sharing his family with the In the Kitchen with Mary Mac podcast and for helping with recording and facilitating the recording. We'd like to thank Frank's mom, Rachel Murgia, and her cousin, Portia Jaworski, for sharing their family's story and the recipe for Falagones with us. And we'd like to thank Talent Network for letting us use their space. I hope you enjoy this episode. It's really special to me because I think this is a really important recipe to know and preserve, and it's just really special, and I really enjoyed doing it. So enjoy. Hello, and welcome to In the Kitchen with Mary Mac. Today we're going to be talking about Falagones, which you've probably never heard of because nobody has heard of Falagones unless you live in Western Pennsylvania, more specifically in McKees Rocks, and more specifically in
Stowe Township in a little suburb called Norwood.
That's where they come from. So we have a guest today, special guest today. We have Rachel Murgia and Portia, and they're going to tell us about the history and what they know about Falagones. So we'll start off with basically, where did the recipe come from?
Well, it's a part of northern Italy, but my mother was from Rotondella, and that's probably where it got started.
So it came through your mother's family?
My mother's side, yeah.
Okay.
It was my mother's side.
Okay, and your mother is, she was a first-generation immigrant to the United States?
Yes, she was 8 years old when she came
8
here.
years old. Okay, my grandmother was 5, I believe.
Yeah, she was 8.
Okay. So now, do you know of, like, did your mother talk about making these with the family when you made them or anything like that?
Well, it started with my grandmother.
Your grandmother.
My
okay.
grandmother, and that's how my mother learned.
Okay.
And we used to all make them, with my grandmother's house. Then we started to make them. Well, I made them with my mother.
Okay.
Yeah, once we made it together, and then we all just learned from that.
So that was
from her.
One of the things I was so interested in. So your grandmother would make these, and the whole family came over.
Most of
Okay.
Sometimes, but sometimes they actually made them separately. All my
Okay.
aunts, everybody did their own, made their own at their own houses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so neat. I think that's such a great way to carry on family traditions, just to get together as a family. Even people that don't cook would enjoy something like that.
We started to do the family thing when Portia, my daughters.
To extrapolate on that a little bit, once our parents passed away, then the tradition was passed on to us, the girl in the family. Yeah. So Rachel being an only daughter and I being an only daughter, we decided, well, if you're going to make them and I'm going to make them, let's get together and make them. So then she had 2 daughters. So her 2 daughters joined in helping, and then her one daughter had 2 daughters, so they joined in helping. And we did that for many years together until we blew out both of my ovens.
Oh, geez.
So,
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. So then we decided this is really getting we were up to about 250.
Yeah, we used to
my
make
gosh.
We were making, because you were making them for many families.
Right,
okay?
right, to share.
To share, yeah. And they all laughed at me, but I actually had an Excel spreadsheet. okay, that had their names on it. And we make them with different fillings. You can make them with potato, and you not only make them with potato, you make them sweet or you make them hot.
Okay.
And then you can make them with spinach, and you can make them sweet or hot, and you can add raisins to them.
Okay, I saw that. I thought that was odd.
And then, it's very good.
Is it?
It's very good.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, because we make these on Good Friday, this is a tradition for us for
It's
Easter.
an Easter.
Okay.
It's an
Not that you
Easter
can't make them throughout the year, but the big tradition is Good Friday. And when my father was alive, in Italian they call these pastiz. Okay. And when my father was alive, his favorite were the meat, which you couldn't eat on Friday.
Right.
And you made those with veal and pork, like
Okay.
city chicken.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know how they call it city chicken, but that's what we call it. And you would you'd put your cheese in there, the mixture, but you would bake them on Saturday because you weren't allowed to eat meat
Meat on Friday.
Right.
until 12 o'clock on Saturday.
Oh, okay.
And everyone would just sit by the oven on Saturday and wait for them to come out.
For the
You
meat.
know?
Yeah.
So as a result, you have all these different varieties that you can make.
Okay.
And then you have all these different people who come with their orders. Like my brother would come and say, I need 25 potato and 15
We
spinach.
do that
And,
every year.
yeah. And then, her one daughter started giving them to her neighbor. And then the neighbor, I want 2 potato. I want this. I want that. So it just grew and grew and grew. And seriously, we blew the oven up.
Oh my
We
goodness.
blew up a
really something.
We blew up a food processor. We blew up an oven. We blew up a garbage disposal.
Oh my goodness.
So finally, I think it was about 3 years ago, we decided we have to separate this process again.
Yeah. So now me and my daughters and my granddaughters, we make them.
And they leave me
separately,
all
and
by
then-
myself.
And she makes them now with her brothers.
With my brothers,
She's with
yeah.
her brothers.
that's
now.
good, though.
But the tradition, I mean,
You know what? It just got too much. None of us we all had bad knees, bad legs,
Oh, yeah.
everything, and making 250 of those.
Oh,
it
that's a
was-
full day.
And we figured, let's get it off. We make about 50, maybe not even. And she don't even make that many anymore.
well, we probably make about 100.
Yeah.
Because
her brothers like to. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and your neighbors know you're making them and they like them.
Yeah.
I mean, people call them a delicacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To
you
us,
don't
they're a
get them.
Falagone.
Yeah.
But you can freeze them too. So I like to freeze them.
Oh yeah, I bet they would freeze.
You freeze, just freeze them, and then when you take them out, you don't thaw them or anything. You put them right in the oven,
Okay.
covered with foil, and just then they're just like fresh.
See, that's one of the things I was wondering when you made them, because that's a big part
Easter.
of Italian culture is you have certain days that you make certain things, and that's it. That's
Yeah.
when you make them.
It's usually Easter, Good Friday. We'll do the potato. We eat the potatoes, and then you can't eat the meat until after 12 on Saturday.
Okay, so you make them. You
You'll
make
go
them
to
on
hell.
Good Friday for your Good Friday that
Yeah,
you're
and
not
then
eating.
Saturday
meat,
after 12, we eat the meat.
and then you make the meat ones. Okay.
Yeah.
That is so interesting, and I just love that. I remember there were certain things that my grandmother made that were only for holidays, like brajol. She made brajol
no, we don't
only
brajol.
for Christmas. That's it. And you never got it. I said, why don't you make that so good? You should make it. Oh, no, that's for Christmas. And it wasn't something, so I...
Well, that's
you
like
know.
wedding soup. I make it for Easter and for Christmas.
Yeah,
twice
see,
a year.
I make it all the time.
I
'cause
do
Oh,
too.
I know.
I make
But that's usually when I make the big pot, because I take it to my daughters for
Yeah.
the dinner, and I have to make that, and I just
I have to tell you that, Mary, as much work as they are, the biggest part of it and the most fun of it is watch people enjoying them.
Yeah.
I mean, really,
you do
people
all that
just-
work, but they love
They
everything.
appreciate
Yeah.
when you give them a Falagone. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my God,
Right. It's so, and I think really it's so special because, like I said, they are not around.
No.
You don't hear about them. And really, right now is when you're picking it up more. In the research that I did online, basically, if you find anyone talking about them, they're from Pittsburgh or from McKees Rocks or from Stowe. You don't find them anywhere. And even in searching Italy, the only place that I found them in searching Italy was in the tip of the toe in Calabria, that's where they were talked about there, way down in the tip of the toe. So nowhere else. And that's probably... if that's their traditional thing, it may have slid down there from where your parents were from.
Well, they're talked about in Hollywood, Florida too, because we have a family there.
Yeah.
and they're they love them too. You
Fort
know,
Lauderdale,
it's like it's unbelievable how people go, oh, Falagones, you know.
Yeah, and isn't it fun? And it's so funny to see people talk about them. People have really fond memories of them, and I think there's a couple of churches in McKees Rocks that sell them
Mother Sorrows
this time of year. Yeah.
Well, it's part of St. John and God now. They do them the first Friday of every month. And there's also a cookie shop in West Park that's called Teresa's.
Okay.
Who was a member of Mother Sorrows, and they make them at her cookie shop too. They make homemade pizza and they make Falagones there.
Yeah, so that's their big
Teresa's
special.
Italian
It's the
bakery,
area.
yeah.
It's
Their
that little
Lenten
nucleus. Yeah.
Yeah, their little Lenten special thing that they do, and it's so localized and such a good thing. So we're gonna we will be sharing the recipe as we go along. And one of the things that I found was in your recipe, the crust is it's almost like you said they're called a pastille.
Pastites.
Because there's in other cultures, for example, in Great Britain, they have a thing that's called a pasty, and it's a little meat pie, and it's the same thing. It's sort of like a pie crust thing, and it's filled with different kinds of meat, and it's just a lot of people call them a hand pie. The Amish make something that's called a ham pie, but they're not that filling. They're not that potato filling. So it's kind of like this. My husband always says every culture has a pierogi, every culture has a ravioli, you know, whatever. So every culture has that thing, and it's this idea of a falagone with the crust that is like it's like a pie crust, but it's not a sweet pie crust, and it's a very flaky, crispy, light crust on it. It's not a bread crust. I just thought that was so interesting. It's a very basic crust. It's stretchy. It doesn't rip when you're making them.
No.
It actually
it
spreads.
Yeah, and it spreads nice. It works nice.
Yeah.
And
the Crisco makes it nice and
pliable. Now, Mary,
pliable.
I don't know when you tested the recipe and you made them, if you let those little dough piles that you end up with set for a little bit.
Yeah, I put them out in balls and I let them
Let
sit.
them sit for a
I
cover.
divided it up.
Cover them up with a towel,
Yeah.
you know, so they don't get crusty from the air. And you let them sit, and then when you go to roll that out, it's like silk.
Yeah, just
That
relax.
dough just rolls right out.
It just
Yeah.
relaxed real nice,
Yeah.
and then
That's how you know you're going to have a good day.
And you get extra ones from those cutoffs. You know, you get extra. You can make many from the cutoffs.
Yeah, and what you basically do, you make this dough is the recipe that we're going to share makes a lot, but I cut it in half the first time I did it, and it worked just fine.
Mm-hmm.
So it divides really easily, but it's basically flour, Crisco, salt, and water. So that's it.
Warm, tepid water.
Yeah, and warm water. So it's not. There's not any. The great thing about Falagones that I really and I appreciate this in a lot of recipes is this is what I like to call a pantry recipe. That means you can walk to your pantry and make this because there's nothing here that's odd that you wouldn't have. You know, you might have to go out and get cheese maybe, but everything here is something that you would probably have in your home. So you could just go get it and make these if you wanted to. And this isn't like an Easter bread thing where you need these special seasonings or dried fruits or
All
the
that yeast
Christmas
that you
bread.
deal
Yeah,
with, you know.
yeah, it's not anything like that, but it's a special holiday thing. Yeah. So I wanted to know if you had any specific memories of making them when you're with your family when you were little. Anything like that, you know, sometimes, especially food is so good for this. You'll smell the smell or you'll start to work on it, and all of a sudden, all these memories come back. And I just wondered if you had any that you wanted to share that were special, like of your grandmother or your mother.
I have many. I have many because my father always seemed to find something wrong with my mother's Falcon. And we lived, like I say, in the little town of Norwood, and what separated our house from my aunt and uncle's house was an alley. Okay, so Aunt Phil and Uncle Kyler lived here, and we lived here, and then there was an alley between us, and on Good Friday, everyone's making Falagones. Okay. Well, my mother's would all be done, and Aunt Phil's would all be done, and Aunt Rosie was on the street, and hers would all be done, and my dad, you know, he'd eat them, and he'd go, "This dough, Lean, it's still not like Phil's." So that's a memory I have. So when my mom passed away, I went over Aunt Phil's, and I said, "Okay, Aunt Phil, I'm stuck with making Falagones. How do you make your dough? Because apparently you don't make it like my mother, because my dad always said yours was better." So that was the sister-in-law thing that went on there where, you know, I'm not listening to her. She's my sister-in-law. you know how that goes. So she told me, she said, you know, I use Crisco in my dough and your mom uses oil.
Oil. My mother used oil all the
Okay.
time.
And that makes the dough harder.
Yeah.
It does.
Right.
So she said, you want to use this recipe. So I did. And my dad was satisfied from that point on. So that's a big memory that I have, that I mastered it. Yeah. Like the first year my mom had passed away, because I thought, I'll be damned if I'm going to make these Falagones and him say they're not like Aunt Phil's.
Yeah, my mother always used oil. It wasn't Crisco.
Yeah.
But they were always good. But then when we got that from my aunt, she went with the Crisco when Portia got it. Mm-hmm. Then now it's all we use is Crisco.
Yeah, because it would make it flakier.
It's
and the
flakier,
oil would
and it's silkier.
Blend into
from
it.
the Crisco.
I can't remember, though. I have to be honest. I don't know, Rach, if you can, your generation. Well, you're a few years older than me, but I don't remember a memory with my grandmother.
Yeah,
I remember the memories with our mothers and aunts and stuff like that, But I'm not that far back to remember my grandmother making them,
Me and my mother, we made them with my grandmother. And my aunt, too, would always be there, too, my Aunt Adeline. So I remember that. When I was a teenager, I was like, 15, 16, 17. And I remember helping her cut everything up and everything. And that's how I learned from her.
Yeah.
And then my mother learned from her. I learned from my mother. And then...
This is
good.
Now
Just
you have
keeps
grandchildren.
My daughters learned, now my granddaughters.
Yeah, that's
pretty
nice.
soon the great grandchildren, maybe.
Yeah, and you know what? And that's something they're probably there for. Yeah. So they see it, play with the dough. That's what I used to do with my kids. If I was doing something, I gave them dough to play with, and I think that really draws their interest. Yeah. And they enjoy doing it and see that it's fun. It's not work. It's fun.
Yeah, because they'd give me the dough with a rolling pin. When I was younger, I'd make a little, try to roll it out, and they'd give me this filling to put in, and then I'd have this little,
I remember
Falagone.
I remember my grandmother doing, when she would make pies, she would give me dough and cinnamon and say, make cinnamon rolls with the scraps, and they were hard as rocks, but they were mine. So,
and you're the only one who ate them.
Yeah, I made my own little Falagone, and that's what I ate.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And that's another thing I wanted to ask, if you knew of any changes in the recipe. So like you said, it started with oil and you changed it to
now. And that's
Crisco.
what everybody uses now, the Crisco.
Okay. And I was wondering about the fillings too, because I know now when you made them when you were little, did you make all the different fillings, or was it just the potato?
No, it was all of them.
All the different, okay.
Potatoes and then the meat on Holy Saturday. You only ate the meat. Spinach. Eat that on Good Friday.
Okay.
And people have their favorites too. It's surprisingly how some people say, like I'll say, I'm going to make you a Falagone. I'm making them. What kind do you want? Oh, I want the spinach. Mm-hmm. They have a preference. What they like.
With raisins or without raisins.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just can't get
we
over
have
the
hot
raisins.
spinach and
try
sweets.
that.
We have hot with you can put that crushed red pepper.
Yeah.
You put that on. Some people like the hot spinach with raisins.
Oh my goodness, hot spinach with raisins. I have to try that.
Yeah.
There's just so many varieties of filling. It's just it could be, especially if you're making the full batch of dough. Because you get, 10 Falagones out of that?
Yeah. Well, we quadruple that, Mary, when we make
it.
Yeah, batches. Now, Frank, when he ate a Falagone, he wanted cheese in there, and he would want a mixture of meat, potatoes, everything together.
Oh, picky.
That one, picky, yeah. He wanted to make a calzone, in other words.
Yeah, there you go. Didn't want to have just the plain.
Yeah.
Well, here's the recipe, and this is in the church cookbook.
Yeah,
St. Joseph's cookbook, and it comes from Portia. Donated this to the cookbook.
They made a cookbook.
And this is the one I used. And here's your recipe, and we'll also have this posted on the website, and it'll be on our Facebook page too. So it's 10 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 cup of Crisco shortening, a teaspoon of table salt, and 4 cups of warm to hot tap water. So it'd be just about the same as when you're making bread. You just feel the water.
Yeah, and the purpose of that is to melt the Crisco.
Okay.
The Crisco, it dissipates into the dough, and that's what gives it that silky, pliable. If you used ice cold water, it wouldn't work with Crisco.
It would come out more like
it would
a
gel.
pie crust.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is, you just blend the Crisco and the salt into the flour as if you're making a pie crust, and once it's blended in, slowly add the water and mix it up, and it will come into a consistency that is smooth and not sticky. You don't want it to be sticky, but on the other hand, you don't want to keep kneading flour into it. And I would not suggest kneading this. I would just suggest mixing this.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Mix it until it's a dough.
Yeah.
It has to be totally brought together and mixed. You don't want to see clumps of Crisco in it.
Yeah.
It has to all be blended. Now, I will interject that my niece just told me that she made some a couple weeks ago, and she actually made the dough in her food processor.
Oh, yeah.
And she said it worked well. I would never do that because I do things the hard way.
You know what? I like to feel it. I can't not feel it.
Well,
It drives me
You
crazy.
work that Crisco into your flour.
Right, and
Yeah,
it also
add a little
gets
bit
out-
of water. Yeah, and you just, get that all mixed up.
Yeah, and you have to
in
get
there,
out
yeah.
your pent-up aggressions, too, as you go into it. That's what dough's for, pent-up aggressions. There would be no road rage if people kneaded dough a couple times a week. It
just like
gets it
meat.
out of you. In this recipe, the potato filling is basically given as the main filling, and then the other suggestions are given. So to make the full amount of Falagones, you're going to need 5 pounds of baking potatoes, and I would suggest using a good baking potato because the texture is different when you bake them. They tend to be more fluffy, and if you're going to use a harder kind of a potato, like I saw somebody use a Yukon Gold, recommended that, or a
it's
regular
yellow.
white,
You don't want
it's
those.
just too hard. So you're going to want a good baking potato. 4 cups of sweet onions peeled and sliced, 2 medium green peppers cut into pieces, but you can also use red peppers, yellow peppers, orange peppers, hot banana peppers if you want to, mild banana peppers, any type of peppers that you want. 1 cup of oil, and I used a nice quality olive oil in mine. I suppose you could use any type of oil that you wanted.
Olive oil, I would never think to put olive oil.
Just the vegetable
Yeah,
oil.
I had a real nice olive oil, and I used that. It really was.
vegetable oil.
And or vegetable oil or canola oil, 1 tablespoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of black pepper, 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, and 1 cup of grated Parmesan Romano cheese mixed, or if you've listened to my ranting in previous episodes, just Romano cheese. And you mix that all together, and that becomes your filling. So you want to make sure your potatoes are well drained. You're going to peel and slice them into water to get the starch off of them. You want to make sure they're well drained. When you mix that all together, and your mixture should be nice and cohesive and well spread out, and then you're going to put about 2 cups of the potato mixture onto the dough that you have rolled out, like you're rolling out for a pie shell, and it comes out to about 9 to 10 inches in diameter. So roll your dough out and put about 2 cups of the potato mixture on it, and then you're going to fold that over to like a half moon and seal it shut. I twisted and pinched mine. I've seen them pressed with a fork.
We usually use the fork.
Or just
But
use
you
your
can
finger
fold-
and turn
yeah,
them in.
sometimes you can just fold up the edges.
Yeah.
and
Whatever
nothing
way you want to
leaks out.
crimp it. Whatever way you
wanna
can crimp it.
Yeah, just so it's tight and it doesn't
Yeah.
leak. And then you're going to bake those on a baking sheet. I didn't grease my baking sheet.
We grease ours.
You grease yours?
Spray.
Yeah,
Pam,
we
with Pam.
spam. We just
Okay.
spray some Pam on it.
And then poke the top of it with a fork to let it vent a little bit while it's baking. And you want to bake it at 350 for an hour. And when they come out, they're beautiful golden brown. And they
Slide right off the
Slide
cookie
right
sheet.
out.
slide off. And
We used to use the fork to prick. Now, when we had the hot ones, we used a knife.
oh,
So we knew the difference because we'd make
To vent it.
Yeah.
She's talking about.
And spinach,
So
we
you
put a
know
little
what's
piece of
hot.
spinach on it. So
You have
we'd
to
know.
you have to code the outside
You
of it.
have to
when
code
you're
it,
making
yeah.
250.
When we made hot spinach, we'd put some paprika on top.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Because we'd put paprika in the
yeah, you have to have a
filling.
code.
You got to have a code. We'd put a raisin on top if we had raisins. No raisin if
No,
it didn't
when you
have
do
it.
the spinach and raisins, how do you prepare the spinach? How do you do that?
The spinach you use leaf
Yeah.
spinach, wash it real good, and spin it. I always spin mine in a spinner.
water.
You know, I
Okay.
do that with the potatoes too to make sure you
Oh,
get
okay,
that
that's a
water.
good idea.
Yeah, spin it, and then you put oil, salt, black pepper, a little bit of garlic powder. And to quote my Aunt Phil, I say, Aunt Phil, how much oil do you use? She said, until it's shiny.
That's what my mom says. Just make them
Just
shiny.
enough it's shiny.
What does that mean?
It's a riot, isn't it? It's a riot, you know. Like my mother, when my mother used to make them, she told my brother to go buy a container of regatta cheese.
Ricotta cheese.
And my brother said, Mom, I didn't know you put regatta cheese in Falagones. No, you throw that away. You use it for
we
a
need a
measuring cup.
container. 3 pound
Mary,
ricotta.
now that's Italian.
3 pound, 3 pound, and that's all they measured their water in when they made the dough. You have to have a ricotta container.
That's Italian.
I'm gonna throw the ricotta.
and you couldn't make your dough on that. Where's the
Or
ricotta?
if you feel
cat?
like it, you can make lasagna tomorrow. Yeah,
Oh, that's
you know.
beautiful.
Yeah.
That is beautiful.
Yeah. You couldn't make them without the container.
Okay, what kind of raisins do you put in? Golden raisins, dark
No, just
raisins?
You can use
regular-
any. We use dark.
We use a dark
Yeah,
raisin.
and you don't wet them. Don't soak them.
Okay, you just
No.
put them
People
in
think
this-
you just
take 'em right
sprinkle
out of
them
the
on top.
box.
Yeah, and they'll puff up in the oven, obviously, when they cook.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a unique taste because if you put a little bit of red pepper seed with the salt that's in there and the sweetness of the raisin, it's phenomenal. It really is.
Oh, I got to try
But
that.
you have to eat them when they're warm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Those
so
are great
funny.
when they come
And
right
you
out of
can't
the
freeze
oven.
those either because they'll be
Yeah,
mush.
they get- yeah.
They'll be mush.
If we're coming on like we love Good Friday,
It's all about the food.
It's all
That's
about
what
the
the holiday.
Falagones.
That's the greatest thing about being Italian. Every special, it's not even a holiday, just a day.
Just a day.
It's all about the food, and it's got to be just right and just so, and you have to taste it all day long. And
I know.
you know, it really is true that in our families, okay, yeah, Easter's a sacred holiday, and you know we all know what it's about and everything, but they just couldn't wait for Easter because of the
Because of the
Falagones on Good
Falagones.
Friday.
And especially
You know?
on Norwood, everybody's doors were, and people, you can just smell them all over the neighborhood.
that's
Because there was just a lot of
great.
people on Norwood making even different streets. I mean,
Well,
you
even
would go to.
your local grocery stores, you know, will run out of the spinach
They will.
because you buy the bag spinach.
Yeah.
You know, and you'll run out of it. You know, they don't have. You have to make sure you get it.
You go to
know?
Costco and you get the real big
Yeah,
bag
you know.
because once you cook that, it
Yeah,
shrinks.
because it's not.
Yeah.
So
done
you
when
got to
it's
have a
done.
lot of spinach because you're going to lose it when it cooks. You know.
Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. Just think about, and now I mean, I realize it's not like that now, but just think about 50 or 60 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, in the neighborhood, everybody
We
cooking.
did it,
you
and
smell
you
all
smell.
the
You
smells.
walk outside, and I'm making Falagones or making
Oh.
Falagones. It was just you just have the smell, just like when you make sauce
Yeah.
on Sunday. You can smell it
The
coming
sauce,
out of
everybody's dipping
everybody's
the
house.
bread.
Yeah,
Sauce on
Mancini
bread.
Everybody's
bread,
cheating.
Mancini bread dip. Yeah.
That's the wonderful things about growing up in my family. My grandparents lived in Canton, Ohio, and that's where our whole extended family from both sides is in Canton, Ohio. The Pellegrinos and the Gambones. All
So
over
you're
the
all
place.
Italian. You pure Italian?
Well,
too?
I'm half Italian.
Oh,
My
she said
mother's
she was
full-blooded
Irish.
Italian, first generation, and my father is Irish.
Oh.
So, yeah, that's the Gaelic and garlic of
Oh,
us.
okay.
So, but we from Canton, Ohio, and you know that we have there's so many fabulous traditions that are getting to be popular now with the cookie tables and
Oh, well, that's a
and
big
the
thing with
cakes, the
Italians,
cream
the
cakes,
weddings.
and all those sorts of things. Panettone is so popular.
Yeah,
I do panettone
That's
at Christmas and
Christmas.
sell it. And I have to always explain to people what it is, you
Yeah.
know. So we did a podcast on that too, and so I just wanted to get some things. It's almost like an oral history, you know,
Yeah.
because things are popular to a certain extent, but nobody knows where they came from or what they're about. And I thought that was so interesting. Falagones is such a little tiny area.
But it's the northern part of Italy. It's just a lot of people from Italy. What's a falagone? I mean, you're
I
from
was-
Italy. You should know what a
Yeah.
falagone is, but they don't because it's not in their part of where they were.
Yeah, it's such a
grown up.
localized thing.
And once someone tastes them, then like you know, you want to know more about them and how they make these and where do you make them and so on and so forth. I have a little part-time job where I work at PNC Park, and one Good Friday I brought some Falagones in at night when I went to work, and there were people there from the home office in Philadelphia.
Oh,
And they wanted to start selling them at PNC Park.
oh my goodness!
They tasted them, and I said, "Don't look at me."
You
They were
imagine
like in awe, you know, like, what are these?
You'd be
Oh my
making more
God.
than 250.
I never ate anything like this, you know.
And
So
then,
it was interesting.
and she's a beautician, so she has a little shop in her basement. And on on Saturday, she'll cut them up for her customers.
Oh,
They'll come in and
that's so
then
nice.
they come looking for the
yeah. Everybody wants their
Of
hair
course,
done that
yeah,
day.
so she slices them up for her customers too.
Make
So
everyone happy.
they make
That's
them
the
all
joy
happy.
of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. That's cooking is joy, and when you give it to others, it gives you even more joy.
Especially people that don't get them, that don't
When they
make
don't,
them.
they
you
never
know.
make them. They don't even know it. You know.
Well, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk to me about this. This is so neat, and I hope we get a really good response from this. And like I said, the recipe will be available on our website and on our Facebook page. So it'll be before Easter, so you'll actually have an opportunity to make these on Good Friday if you want to.
And make sure to check us out online on Facebook and Instagram at Mary Mac Bakehouse, on Twitter at Mary Mac Podcast, and on our website, marymacpodcast.com.
And I just so much appreciate this because I'm just so curious about them. I always love to learn things about food. So thank you so much, Rachel and Portia. I appreciate it. Thank you, Frank, for letting us use your fabulous studio here at Talent Network. I really appreciate it. And thanks a lot for listening if you did. And if you didn't, too bad for you.